What's up everybody, I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be reviewing the interior in the 2021 Honda Accord Hybrid. So this is the touring trim, so it's the top trim of the Accord Hybrid. This one retails for right around $35,000, $36,000 as tested, but you can't get an Accord Hybrid much lower. But they actually did some nice improvements here for 2021 to the Accord. It's mostly the same, but there are a few little things, the biggest of which is wireless smartphone integration in the higher trims, which is really nice. A lot of companies are doing this for 2021, but it's really great that you can now have that. But overall, I've always liked the Accord interior. I think it's, you know, nice and just clean. It's a little more expensive feeling to me than like the Camry. Not as high-tech feeling as the new Sonata, which is, you know, a little fresher than this is. But I think this still holds up so well and just, you know, looks really nice.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty upgraded. I think this kind of wood trim is nice, even though it's not real. It seems like it's plastic. But...
yeah, but it looks like it actually would be open pore wood. But
right. It looks really nice. And it looks like they've really done well with it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most convincing wood trims that I've seen that's fake.
Yeah, but it also kind of looks like a zebra, especially in this corner, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah. More interesting than the regular, like, printed stuff that a lot of other companies do, though, I think, for sure. But yeah, so anyway, first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have leather seats here in the touring trim, and they're really pretty comfortable. They have a very long leg portion here, and so it just feels like it really comes all the way almost to the back of my knees with just how long this seat is, but it means it's really supportive, especially if you're on the taller side. And then you also have the lumbar adjustment and all that, and they're heated and ventilated seats here. The ventilation works fairly well. It's not one of the best ventilations out there. I remember testing these same seats in other Accords that I've reviewed in the past, the 2.0T Touring that I did actually in the summer, so I was able to test those. Here in the winter, we've mostly just been testing the heated seats, and those work pretty well too. But I think they're, you know, pretty comfortable seats though.
Yeah, I think they're really comfortable too, but coming over to the passenger side, I will say that it does not have a height adjustment, which is a bad thing for me. I also feel like I'm not sitting up super high. It just doesn't feel like I'm jacked up, which is a normal feeling. When you immediately sit down in some of these cars, you can just tell, like, wait, I'm sitting higher than I normally do. So in this car, I didn't feel that. Even though I can adjust the height, I still feel like it's a really comfortable chair.
Yeah, I think honestly, just in general, you sit a little bit lower in the Accord, and I don't know if it's like the fact that like maybe the doors come up a little bit higher here or what it is, but I feel like I'm sitting in the Accord, whereas in the Camry and the Sonata, I feel like I'm sitting on those cars.
Right, exactly. And I think that's an issue that I tend to see a lot, especially in the passenger side, because that's what's happening, is I don't feel like I'm sitting in the car, like my knees are the same height as the dashboard, and I just feel like that's bizarre.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so really nice and a little bit sportier, I think, since you're sitting a little lower too. But anyway, next is the steering wheel here in the Accord, which is really great. It's actually one of my favorite steering wheels in this segment because it has just this really good 9-3 grip that really like kind of sucks in your thumbs here really nicely. So you have a really good grip, nice 10-2 notches, a nice and thick wheel too, but it feels really nice with the leather wrapping you get here in the higher trims. Just a few buttons here on it, nothing too busy. Pretty easy to understand. You also have paddle shifters here on the back of the wheel, which don't actually do any shifting. They're actually to control the regenerative braking here in the hybrid version. But even though they're just plastic, they look nice and are nicely placed, and so that's all good. But the one major downside of this steering wheel is it is not heated, even in the top touring trim. There is no way to get a heated steering wheel in any version of the Accord, and that is a sore exclusion, not only because we're testing this vehicle in January when it's very cold, and I sorely miss the heated steering wheel, but also because both of its competitors, the Sonata Hybrid and the Camry Hybrid, do have heated steering wheels in those higher trims. So that is something, if you're going to live in a cold place, that might be a deal breaker to not have a heated steering wheel, because it's really nice to have. But aside from that, this wheel is really great, but I just wish Honda would put a heated wheel. They have heated wheels in a lot of the other stuff, the CR-V, all that, but in the Accord, you can't get it for some reason, which is kind of confusing, but it is what it is. Moving on to the gauges here, though, in the Accord. Now, these gauges are really nice. I really love the way they have this set up. So it's partially digital, but they do a really good job of blending the two so that even the analog speedometer looks like it almost those could be digital. And so on the left-hand side there, though, that's the digital portion, and you can scroll through all kinds of stuff. You can see your power meter there replaces a tack that you would have on a normal cord. But I mean, just so many different things you can choose from. You can even, watch the power flow, which is always fun to see, what's providing you with your acceleration, all that kind of stuff, but also the typical stuff, your range, your fuel economy, audio information, navigation, all those types of things there are all displayed. And so it's really great to have all this. It's very snappy and quick with the menus and everything too. And so that's all very well done. You also have a head-up display here in the Touring trim, and that's really cool. It doesn't have too many customizations to it, but it'll basically usually just show you your power meter there and your speed readout. But also if you have the adaptive cruise control system on it, we'll show you that information with the lane keeping assist and all that. And you can also have it so that it'll display your navigation instructions as well, which is really handy because I actually noticed I did run navigation the other day through Apple CarPlay. And usually with other systems, Apple CarPlay, once you use their maps, none of the other navigation stuff works in the car. You have to always use the car's built-in nav. But with this, with my Apple CarPlay directions, it still was putting those turns and stuff up on the head-up display for me, which was something I'm not used to having with CarPlay. And so that is really nice that it integrates that so well. And it's wireless CarPlay too, so I didn't even have to plug in. I just ran my navigation and had it right there on the windshield, which is really cool. So a really well done head-up display there. But then coming over to the center of the dashboard here, one of the nice changes for 2021 is that this 8-inch touchscreen is now standard across the board. Previously, I believe the base model had a slightly smaller screen. Now they all get this screen, and all of them get standard Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integration. But it unfortunately is only wireless in higher trim. So in the hybrids here, it's on EX and up that gets wireless smartphone integration. If you go for a gas version of the Accord, it's EXL and up that gets the wireless integration. So unfortunately, it's not standard across the board. There's a little bit of a bummer there, but still is nice that you have that wireless integration for sure. I really like this head unit as well. This is, I think, Honda's best system because in some of the other models, you don't have a tune knob like you do in this, or the volume knob is smaller, or it's, not there or something. This is really great with, nice large volume and tune knobs. This is, really snappy with the infotainment. You can customize those tiles and move them around to wherever you want.
But I will say, I wish that the physical buttons were maybe a little bit smaller. I don't feel like you need that much space to press that button, which then could make the screen a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I could make the bezels a little bit skinnier. That would be nice. But honestly, I don't mind the bigger buttons because it means it's a little easier to press whenever you're driving and stuff.
True.
A little easier to find. But so I can understand maybe Honda's thinking, but I certainly think in the future they'll probably do a bigger version of the screen, and they'll probably do exactly what you're saying and get rid of those or make them a little bit smaller. That would make a lot of sense for sure. Yeah. Also, this screen is paired up with this Honda audio system, and so it's just an in-house Honda system. Even in their top trims, they don't have any branded stereo upgrades like many other companies do. And I mean, it works okay. It is a couple more speakers here in these top trims. But what I noticed is it was a little too sharp with the audio, especially whenever I was running CarPlay. Some parts of songs were a little bit too sharp and just didn't sound good to my ears. So I actually had to go into the settings and kind of try and mellow stuff out from the default, middle of the road settings to try and soften that, but it still was a little sharper than I would like. So not in love with this stereo, honestly.
And also, one thing that I noticed was that it seemed like all of the sound was coming from the very front of the car. Even though it said it was balanced to the back, I just felt like it was just all coming from the front and I didn't hear anything behind me, which was kind of weird.
Yeah. So yeah, not the best system out there. And I think some of the competitors, like the Sonata, has a Bose system. I think that sounds better. I think the Camry even has their JBL stereo, those aren't amazing either. I think the Bose is probably the best in the Sonata. But this just was a little underwhelming. Yeah,
also with this being one of the highest trims, I would expect there to maybe be something a little bit better.
Yeah, and it's weird because like Acura, they have their ELS studio sound systems, which are some of the best stereos in their segment of vehicle. I love the Acura sound systems. It's just the Honda ones that I'd love to see the ELS, be moved into the Hondas here in the top trims because yeah, this definitely has a little room for improvement with these Honda stereos. But anyway, moving on from that, come down, you have your climate controls here, which are really cool. So they're actual metal. The plastic ones up here for the volume and stuff don't feel quite as nice, but down here that is real metal. And I also love how whenever you change the temperatures, it reflects it with this little ring of color. Just little touches like that you know, it shows they go the extra mile. It's a little bit more fun, a little more visually pleasing than just a plain plastic knob like you get in both the Sonata and the Camry. And so that's really nice, a nice little display, and all the buttons and stuff feel really nice. They have a really good feel to them when you press them. I also like how you have in the Accords no actual physical shifter, you just have a few buttons. I think that really frees up this space and makes it look a lot more open, and it's just a little bit of a better use of space too. Moving on to storage space here in the Accord though, I'd say it's, you know, right on par with most of the other stuff out there, and so they did a good job with it. First, in the doors here you have kind of like a double bottle holder here. You also have a pretty deep grab handle here, so you could fit a little couple of things in there. And then in the middle here, you have this pretty deep cubby that does have a wireless charging pad, and that is standard in EX and up trims. It's EXL and up now for other versions. That was previously something only in the touring trims of the Accords. They did bring that down here for 2021. And so it's nice to have the wireless charging pad, but what I've noticed, I tried putting my phone on there for a longer drive over this weekend, and it just doesn't make good contact. Even though my phone doesn't even have a case on it, it was just constantly coming off and on, and there's little rubber notches here to like hold it in place, but it still just was not reliably charging my phone. So I think, honestly, that's kind of worthless in my opinion. I noticed it didn't work well in the 2018s that I reviewed a couple years ago either, and so I still think that could use a lot of improvement there, and I'm still not sold on wireless charging pads in cars in general. They're usually pretty slow and don't work very well, and this one unfortunately falls in that you know, stereotype. But otherwise, you have 2 USB jacks in this area, one for charging and one for your smartphone if you want to hook it up that way. And you also do have a normal power outlet in there, and you also have a nice little cover here to hide all that stuff if you want. You also have 2 cup holders that are a good size, and then you have the center armrest, which does have some padding to it. It's a little firmer than I would like, but it's pretty good. And anyway, you open that up, and then you'll see this little removable and slidable tray, and then you'll see a nice large cubby there as well with an additional power outlet in there. And so no complaints with all that. I think it's, you know, pretty good. And you also will see a little bit of padding here by your knee area, which is something that's really nice. Not all the competitors actually have this, and so it unfortunately is hard plastic up here. So if you're a little bit closer, you know, you might come in contact with hard plastic. But if you have your legs a little bit lower here, that is really nice to have some padding there. And so it's a nice little inclusion that I think makes this feel a little bit more premium than some of the competitors, especially the Camry, where this is all just hard plastic. Back seat here in the Accord is really one of the best in its class still. I still think it feels a little bit more spacious than the Camry. I think it's on par with the Sonata as well, but it's just such a roomy and spacious back seat. I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I easily have about 5 inches of legroom to spare back there. I mean, very spacious. You can really spread out in that back seat. It's really comfortable. Plenty of headroom as well. And there's also some nice amenities here in the touring trim. So you'll see there's heated rear seats for those outboard seats, which is a very nice inclusion here in the touring. You'll also see a full down center armrest with 2 cup holders built into it. There's also dedicated air vents back here. And you'll see that there's also 2 more USB jacks back there as well. So that is a new inclusion here that, again, is another thing that you get on, I believe it's EX and higher trims. And so that is really great to have, you know, the extra hookups back there. And so overall, one of the nicest back seats in this segment of vehicle, and I just still think they killed it on the space. It is just so spacious. Trunk space in the Accord here is also really good. They just did a really good job with this generation Accord of giving you a lot of space back there. So it's nice and wide, very long, and actually has a good amount of height to it. The trunk opening is pretty wide, and so it makes for a very good trunk, and I don't think you'll have any complaints there with that. If you do want more space, you can always go up to a CR-V hybrid or something like that too. But yes, that's all our thoughts here on the interior of the Accord. Overall, I still think it's one of the nicest interiors in its segment. I think it's, you know, a little less tech than the Sonata. It's not quite as awesome as that is, but I mean, all the plushness you get here, just the way everything feels, the way everything works, I think the Honda really nailed it with this generation Accord. And, you know, having the wireless smartphone integration here for 2021, as well as having, you know, a few of the other little features that are brought down to the lower trims are, you know, really nice inclusions as well. And I think that, you know, the hybrid version of the Accord here, since you do get some of those features for less money than you do with the gas versions, I think that the hybrid is really going to make a lot of sense to a lot of people and probably be the one to get unless you want the absolute most power with the 2.0T Touring. And also, it's worth noting this hybrid Touring is about $800 cheaper than the gas 2.0T Touring, so you can actually get all these Touring features for a little bit less money than if you were to go for a regular gas Accord, and you save a bunch of money on fuel and stuff as well. So it just is a win-win everywhere. But you can go watch my driving review. I'll link that above if you want to hear all the details on how this drives and more talk about the fuel economy and the pricing and all that kind of of stuff. But yeah, those are all our thoughts on the interior. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thanks to Honda for providing us with the Accord here to review for you guys. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.